Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Commander Mark Georgelin. We welcome members of the ACT Reserve Forces Day Council. We would also like to welcome those who have joined us today to commemorate Reserve Forces Day, which recognises the service and achievements of the Reserve Forces of the Australian Defence Force. And we're honoured to acknowledge both former and current serving members of our Reserve Force and thank you for your service. We're also honoured to acknowledge Lieutenant General Rocky R. Mead, Chief of Defence Staff, Jamaican Defence Force, Jamaica, and Vice Admiral David Johnston, Vice Chief of the Defence Force, Australia, and the accompanying delegation. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Holly Farm Primary School, Merriweather, and from Queensland, Robinson State School. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. invite you all now to please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Party 810. Party present. Arms.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is earth by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Party shoulder. Arms. Party order. Arms.
Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Charles Stanley Bingley. Charles Bingley was born on the 28th of February 1892 on the family farm Woodfield near Queanbeyan, New South Wales, the son of Thomas and Victoria Bingley. Charles was educated in Queanbeyan and was a member of the school cadets. After completing his studies, he took up a position as a teacher at Uberta Public School near Wagga Wagga. The school had begun in 1912 and at the time catered for around 20 local children. Bingley was still in this role when World War I began. On signalling his intent to enlist, Bingley's sister Lily, who was also a teacher, was transferred to Uberta Public School to take over from her brother. On the 1st of December 1915, Bingley joined the start of the Kangaroos recruitment march at Wagga Wagga. It was the beginning of a 350-mile march to Sydney. By the time the marchers reached Sydney on the 7th of January 1916, their numbers had swelled from 88 to 230. The Kangaroo March was the longest of the snowball recruitment marches. The Kangaroos were entrained to Goulburn shortly after reaching Sydney, and it was here on the 24th of January 1916 that Bingley enlisted in the AIF. After his initial training, he and many of those he had marched with were allocated to the 2nd Reinforcements to the 55th Battalion. Bingley embarked from Sydney on the 14th of April aboard the transport ship Ceramic, bound for the Middle East. After arriving in Egypt in June, Bingley and his comrades trained in the Egyptian sands until late July, when they were sent to England. Those destined for the 55th Battalion were sent to the 14th Training Battalion at Hamilton, where training followed before being sent to France at the end of August. Bingley was taken on strength of the 55th Battalion on the 23rd of September and was sent to Charlie Company. He and the other reinforcements were sent on a one-week training course at the Divisional Bomb School. While the 55th Battalion had been committed to the disastrous attack at Fromelles 3 months earlier, Bingley entered the front line for the first time near Fleur Bay in early October. In mid-October, the battalion transferred to the Somme. The 55th entered the front line near Fleur on the 21st of October and spent the next week in the line before moving back to the details camp. The 55th Battalion re-entered the front line near Fleur during the 30th and 31st of October. Rain made the going tough, but by late afternoon on the second day, the battalion had completed its move. At some point during that day, Bingley was hit in the chest by shrapnel from a German shell. He was evacuated to the 36th Casualty Clearing Station, but his wound proved mortal, and he died on the 2nd of November. He was laid to rest in Haley Station Cemetery, Mericorlab. He was 24 years old. Two of Charles's brothers also served in the AIF. Harold joined in January 1916 and arrived in England only 2 days before his brother was mortally wounded in France. Harold joined the 55th Battalion that December, but illness shortened his war, and in January 1918, he returned to Australia for discharge. Ewan enlisted in August 1916. and served with the 19th Battalion on the Western Front, where he was wounded twice. He returned to Australia in 1919. Charles Bingley's name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Charles Stanley Bingley, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
Whole party shoulder, arms.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Party present, arms. Party shoulder, arms.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Whole party in words. Turn. Whole party quick. March.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, students, That concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.